It's another day working on the Audi. So here is the parts collection that I have. There's a little bit more in the garage I'm gonna pull out, but the plan is now to figure out what parts are good, what's fixable, and what needs to be replaced. I wanna get a parts list going so I can go to Audi tomorrow and maybe order some things if it's cost effective. If not, I'm gonna try to find used parts on eBay and things, but I'm gonna try the dealer first. I saw like hoods and things, it looks like are only $100 more just to buy it brand new. So in those cases, I probably just buy it new and not deal with a pre-owned hood that could be a little bit bent or something. This is obviously no good, but I'm hoping that the modules, if I have to buy a pre-owned light, which I think I will because the new ones are really expensive, I can use the modules off of it. I hope those are still good. So this may be used for parts. Here's the entire parts collection. We got fender liners, bumper with the grille, AC condenser, some under trays, some headlight pieces, air intake, a cover shroud thing, radiator, another piece for light, more intakes, under panel, radiator assembly, crash bar, fans, headlights. It's all pretty much here. Everything that was taken off, apart from some sensors, is here. Now I just gotta figure out what's good and what's not. I think the fans are still good. I'm gonna put those back in. Like I said, I'm gonna try to fix that light. The under tray is fine. One headlight assembly is okay, but we're gonna start going through it and get that parts list going. I found that this headlight that came off the passenger side has a little bit of a crack up in the corner. I'm gonna try to epoxy it just because these are anywhere from $500 to $1,500. I'm gonna try just using some Gorilla Glue that dries clear and that's waterproof to put on the edge of this headlight here. Again, in an effort to just make it watertight because it was not throwing any codes and was working just fine before I pulled it out. Well, I'm gonna call this as good as factory. Now I'm gonna go look at the crash bar and show you a plastic tab that's broken, but I think it has its own part number and I can rivet a new one on. Let's go take a look at it. Crash bar is not bent in any way. The only issue to it is that there's this plastic tab here that broke off. But if you look closely, I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, I don't know if it'll focus. This has its own part number. So I'm gonna look it up. My thinking is drill out these rivets, get a new plastic bracket, I can just rivet it on, and then the crash bar is good to go. Well, good news, I was able to find that broken plastic tab that was on the crash bar on eBay for just $13.63. So I'm gonna get this ordered, and then the crash bar should be as good as new. I came up with what I think is a little bit better of a system. So pretty much anything with blue tape means that it's bad. Anything that doesn't have tape can be reused again. So now I got a yellow pad and I'm gonna start writing down part numbers so I can take that to Audi and kind of keep everything organized. The list is done. I think I got every broken part I need on this list, even down to the plastic bolt that holds the top of the radiator in. That has its own part number. I think I got it all. I'm gonna pop the sprayers out of the hood just to make sure there's no issues there. And assuming those aren't broke, the list is complete and I'll be off to Audi tomorrow. Well, it's been over a week since I've gone to work on the car because getting parts proved to be way more difficult than I expected it to be, and I still don't even have all of the parts. I'm just waiting on the radiator support, but I need that because that goes on first and then basically everything bolts to that support. That should hopefully be here tomorrow or Monday. We'll see. But in the meantime, we're gonna get started with what we can do. I've recruited my mom to help spray the hood hinges. I got them off of another RS5, a white one, so those have to be painted black. And then I actually was able to get a temperature sensor for this manifold that goes in right here. So that I have that. I'm thinking I'm gonna put that in and get this manifold put back in the car. Just one less thing to do when that radiator support comes, but it's gonna be difficult because I have to connect 3 different coolant lines and they're not easy to get to. But we're gonna start painting, do this, and then hopefully the radiator support comes in a timely manner and we can keep going on with the rebuild. Here's the homemade paint booth that we made for those hinges. It's really just a box with some coat hangers that the hinges are hanging on. Hopefully that prevents drips and overspray. It's working so far on that one, but we're gonna do the second one next. This is where the headlight that took the impact was. It got pushed into the paint just a little bit. It didn't dent the metal, but you can see just a little bit of paint was chipped away. I'm gonna try to touch that up to see if we can fix it without having to repaint the entire fender. So here's how the fender turned out. It's actually not that bad. I'm actually pretty happy with it, given the contours and all that. And then once the headlight's in there, I don't think you'll even notice. So I'm gonna count that as a win. Today is a good day. The sun is out, and I think I got all the parts I need to get the RS5 both running and driving. And I say I think because there's a lot of sub part numbers that bolt onto the main parts, but I think looking through the parts, most of those sub part numbers I can reuse. So that's good. First thing is first is here is the new radiator support. I'm gonna get some parts that are on the broken one switched over to this, get this mounted to the car so I can start bolting the radiator, AC condenser, and all that to it. Well, let's get started. Before we get too far along in the rebuild, I did want to mention that I completely blew the parts budget. For some reason, I thought I could fix all this for about $3,500. I did a quick Google search before I bought the car. That proved to not be the case. I'm over $8,000 in with parts right now. I thought I could buy a lot more pre-owned like eBay parts, such as like bumpers, bumper covers, things like that. RS5 parts are, I guess, are really hard to come by, so a lot of parts had to be bought new through the dealer, which drove up the costs. So if you're going into this, know that possibly your part budget could swell tremendously. However, the car was purchased right, where I think I'm still okay. All the auxiliary pieces have been added to the new radiator support. All the bolts, all of the metal brackets in the back, everything's been added. But before I put this on, it's gonna be easier, it'll give me more room that if I install this manifold first. This had the broken, I think it's a temperature sensor in it. Got a new one of those, so I'm gonna get that installed and this put back on right here. Now get the hose clamp and I'm working it out. But the bottom part keeps getting snagged up. Like I can't get it wide enough because it's like a pressure one. It's not your standard like clamp down style. Tighten this down, and then I'm gonna put the coolant hoses that run along the side. Get the wires put back together or clip back on. And then I think it's ready for the radiator support. After struggling with trying to get the tubing on the manifold, I put a little bit of soap inside the tube, and when I went to push it on, it slipped right on. So if you're ever in a bind and you can't get a tube onto an extension there, a little bit of soap may help. Then I just slid up the hose clamps, got those into position so that they would sit flush, and it was pretty much smooth sailing from there. Here's the new radiator. I switched all the auxiliary parts from the old one onto the new one. Kind of like these rubber feet had to switch over, the rubber grommets on top, the bolts that hold the maybe transmission cooler. Some of those things had to be switched over. Now it's time to attach this to the radiator support. And here is the fan assembly. I just need to figure out, slide it in. It's meant to be taken on and off in the car, but I just think it's easier to put it on now. Radiator is in. These quick connect for both, I don't know if that's a vacuum line, but the radiator hoses made it super easy and fast. And then there was just the, again, I think they're transmission cooler lines. Those were just 1 bolt a piece. And I got the fan assembly installed as well. And you can't see down there, but the wires, that's all plugged in also. The next step's going to be to hook a vacuum up to the whole cooling system. So I want to test if there's any leaks. If it holds a vacuum, it means no leaks and we can put coolant in. I've never vacuum filled before, but here's what I'm thinking. This was just a Harbor Freight vacuum fill. It's at -0 PSI right now. I have the air compressor hooked up here, runs down to the compressor. I believe if we plug it into the compressor, open this, it will pull air across this control, creating a vacuum that needs to read 24 pounds for 20 seconds or so to ensure there's no leaks. Then once that happens, you can open this nozzle, and the end of this, it will be in the coolant and it should just suck it right in. Whether it's going to work that way, I don't know, but we're going to find out. All right, we are holding a vacuum at 24. We're going to put this in the coolant. I thought it wasn't going to fit. We just have to make sure we don't suck it all out. We want to leave a little bit. So now, when we open this, it should start pulling. Ready? It's going. You gotta watch that level. Yeah. I don't know if there's a sight gauge on the back side. Okay, get close. Now. Okay. So last night we ran out of sunlight to continue with the coolant vacuum filling, but now it is done and it's a little bit overfilled. Not terrible, just a bit, but it's full and I don't believe there are any airlocks in it by just judging how much it took. It is pink, it kind of looks orange in the black, but it is the Audi pink coolant. So before I start the car, I want to get the headlights in because it's throwing a bunch of error codes. So I'm gonna get those in, and then I want to run the car up to temp, make sure the fans kick on, coolant's flowing, that this radiator opens up, and that we're good to go. But first, headlights. So this has to fit into here. I don't fully remember how it went. My plan is to put the headlight in, install the headlight to this before I put it in the car. I think that's gonna be the better call.
It was surprisingly easy to install the headlight into the car once it was connected to the bracket, and on top of that, switching the modules from the broken headlight to the good headlight was super straightforward and painless as well.
The passenger headlight is in, but before I can move over to the driver's side, I need to take the modules off the smashed headlight, this computer, this one here, and transfer them over to a new pre-owned headlight that I bought. I got the new headlight mounting bracket put together. I got my baggie of assorted parts from the headlight. I think the bolts I need to attach the headlight to this are in the bag. So now I'm gonna put the new to me headlight to the bracket and get that in the car just like we did with the passenger one. I'm gonna see if they actually work. Fingers crossed. Well, good news, all the headlight errors are off of the dash. It looks like this was the right light. couple things I wanted to point out. First, in some of the clips you saw a sensor that was hanging down right over here. I finally figured out where that went, and it's an ambient air temperature sensor that just kind of connected here and here into the crash bar. So now there's no more sensors hanging. This module back here is loose, and that will mount to the bumper cover. That's for the garage door opener.
It's time to add the secondary radiator air shroud. This radiator opens up when the car gets extra hot, like when you're on the track. I also installed the passenger and driver side intake shrouds.
Alright, so the passenger air intake shroud is in. The driver one is in as well, but it does have a hole in it. It's on back order, so once it comes in, I'll replace it, but for now, it won't cause any issues, because then there's another piece that goes along both of these that covers it up. It's just more air directional pieces. Now, bumper cover. I'm excited. The bumper fits almost perfectly. Just got the 4 bolts put in. I'm just going through, making sure all the body gaps are okay. It's gonna have to come off again for paint.
It's been a few weeks since I've got to work on the car, but we're back. Hood's been painted and the front bumper has been painted, so those are ready to go on. The only other outstanding items is I want to do an oil change. I don't know when the last time it was done, and I need to recharge the air conditioning system, but to do so they have to evacuate all the air, moisture, and then put a new Freon, so I'm going to take it somewhere for that. But today it's going to be hood and bumper, assuming all goes well. I've not looked at it. They've been painted, I picked them up, but I haven't seen them fully done yet. I got my dad here helping me, but we put a little bit of blue masking tape on the edge here and some foam on both sides, just in case when we go to push it down, the gap isn't perfect. We'll look, but this is kind of just a safety since everything's been painted. It was less concerning when we were just mocking it up, but we got the edges protected. Now we'll put the hood on. Pretty good looking hood, actually. Very aggressive. Over here is a pre-owned RS5 grill. It's got a couple nicks in it, but it was like $200 something, so worth it. I gotta get this grill and then the 2 lower grills here and on the other side installed before I can mount the whole thing to the car. The hood is on, the fender is on, the splitter is on, the grill, the badge, all that is on and done. In here, I pulled out the passenger seat so I can clean the carpet and all the surrounding trim. I already had taken the driver's seat out and did the same thing on this side. Once this gets a little cooler, I'm going to detail out the back seats as well. Goal for right now is to get the wheels off, fender liners put on, under some skid plates put on, under trays, and that's it. It's time to make that fit into here. The RS5 is 100% completely done. The air conditioning system has been recharged. The car's been washed, it's been clay barred, it's been waxed, interior, pulled the seats out, detailed the entire interior. Now, let's start it.
The car is so clean and nice that I don't even want to drive it. No warning lights on the dash, got everything cleared and fixed. Interior came out awesome.
carpet cleaned it, detailed the seats, put a leather conditioner on it, back seats, trunk, everything. Well, that's a wrap on the RS5 project. Thank you for following along, and just maybe we'll do another one.